Good morning, guys. Okay, so we need to talk about our BTC long that I shared with you guys yesterday because I'm thinking the market's going to run away from us. So let's get into the charts real quick and see what is happening. Okay, so I've got the Bitcoin chart that I shared with you guys. And in short, I'm thinking the markets, everybody is so comfortable on the idea that we're going to come back down to at least 80, 90,000. I think yesterday was the shakeout, and that's it. The market's going to run away from us. So that's it. That's basically the whole gist of the whole for today. So I want to adjust this buy zone with you guys. I'm going to show you exactly why within that price structure. And that's basically that. So we're going to take it from the weekly, we're going to look at the daily, and then we're going to end up on the 4-hour time frame, just to kind of put the whole thing in context, because I want you to basically be able to, during this weekend, be informed of what's going to happen for this. And this also means that the altcoins might not test lows. They're still going to pump for a little bit longer, because none of them really, except for a few, SUI and a few outliers, have made higher highs yet. So Bitcoin, if it stops pumping now, they're just going to go dumping. As simple as that. So we need Bitcoin to be bullish for a little bit longer, in my opinion. Okay. Now, if you're new to the channel, guys, let me know. Come on, say hi in the chat, in the comments. Let me know. I'm flying solo today, so I'll be turning my head and looking really weird at the screen to the side, looking at your comments. So let's see. Good morning, Firestorm. Elephant Lover, good morning, and good morning, fellow frenemies. Good morning to have. Nice to have you here on the stream live. There's about 50 people joining live at the moment. Okay, so let's do TA together, guys. I always say, show me the charts, and I'll tell you the news. There will be some bullish news probably happening within the next few hours that probably will drive price much higher. Okay, over to the weekly time frame real quick. What I'm going to do is I am, however, just going to switch off all the setups that I shared with you guys over the last few weeks. And we're going to take away the analysis as I had it from the bearish trend, because we're still kind of debating on the bullish side of things. Okay. And then also the last long, I think that one cannot be moved into the setup shared, and we're going to do it like that. Okay. So going to keep everything nice and clean. And then let's cut the music. Let's focus a little bit more before we move into, before we move on. Okay. Now, the important thing is when we do analysis like this is to have the RSI with us. The RSI is the important thing, is a leading indicator. It basically explains or shows nicely the balance between the buyers and the sellers. Who's got the money? That's the one that wins. You know, whoever has the gold makes the rules. As the old saying goes, it's the same is true for the RSI. So we're going to look at the RSI. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so we can have the whole thing on the screen. And there you have it. So now the screen is ready for action. Okay. Now, the weekly has a few significant things I want to point out. We had a big bearish candle, bearish engulfing candle sitting right there. So we had a sell-off. Price stayed below the closing price. So what happens? Wicks like those, when you have a sell-off and price staying below it, wicks like those tend to get filled, and some. So maybe let's make this a little more transparent so you can see a little bit better. Wicks like those, with the candle then thereafter stays below that closing price. They get filled, and some. And now we're sitting in a situation where it's the opposite potentially happening. So when we have a big bullish candle that engulfs the bearish candle, it is more like this than expecting another retrace. And that's why I'm thinking the market's going to run away from us. We can have a look at it in the past as well. When you have a look at big bullish candles that engulfs the bearish candle. Okay, what do we have? Big bearish candle. What happened? Price stayed at the closing price. So wicks like those, they get filled, and some. But because we didn't have a majority wick on it, we use that as a demand zone buy. So back in the day on YouTube, if you followed me from way back, I'm just going to open the HODL stream. Those would be the areas where we look to buy. Okay. And demand zone buys there. And the worry is why I'm saying I don't want to look at bottoms again, because this is exactly the breakout, and then it is so strong, never goes to these lower lows where we're looking at. So that's the narrative. So we've got this kind of price structure happening, as opposed to something else. Now, there is always a caveat to anything or something just to note. If next week the price stays just where it's at for another week, it changes the thing and the momentum changes. Hence the fact that I do these things live with you almost every day, so that you can kind of have, stay in touch with what is happening in the market. Okay, so over to where we are right now. You've got a little bit of a fractal background now. You understand where I'm going with this, where I'm coming from. So all eyes this weekend has to be, it's in 2 days and 16 hours, on where this weekly close. So the target price that we want to see Bitcoin get above is 94,259. We've already worked into that area, so that supply zone has already been taken out. A little bit higher, 94,400. Okay, and once price closes there, because it probably will close flat top there, it's going to open another weekly, and the argument is we're going to run. Then flat bottom, run. Let's see. Okay, this then means taking this to the daily time frame. This was all the retrace that we were going to have, and maybe later on, after Bitcoin hits 120, we will come back to fill the imbalance. Meaning this is going to be in the future, mark my words, let's see if I'm right. In the future, this is going to be the area where people say, don't worry, it was just a blip and we're going to have more. And eventually that's what happens. Not having more. Okay, so keep that in the back of your mind. And remember, good gaps for the alts. All of this was bear market. I mean, you can look at ETH, you can look at Solana, the things went from all-time high crazies to testing some serious bad lows. Okay, that's what you want. You want to see the gap, and then you want to see the price move. So best case, this on a fractal play is something like that, And I only want to see this price get hit way down the road. If it does it now, it changes the dynamic of the market. It takes away the bullish momentum and the massive gains. This 100K, 120K BTC is off the table, in my opinion. Okay. Right. Does it make sense? Let's see. I've got 110 people joining in live. 3 comments. Come on, guys. Say hi. Let's quickly see where we're at. Morning, Mr. DM Photographic. I don't want to be talking to myself. Come on. Let me know where you're at. Okay. Let's head over to the 4-hour time frame. Now that I've got the fundamental, you can probably the technical fundamentals behind me, and you can kind of understand the narrative that I'm working towards. This then changes things. So let's switch on the bearish analysis that we broke out from. And now let's have a look at this from a more structured point of view and say, okay, what's going to happen if the market keeps on pushing on a little bit higher? So because we have a very steep departure angle, let's take away the RSI. Divergence was created between these 2 points. The market's rallying up, using it as support and resistance. This is going to be, in my opinion now, the axis for this move. Okay, let's get this. What was the axis that generated this channel? The same thing that we had here. We had divergence. We had the price breaking through. And then basically from that point onwards, I use that to extrapolate the axis for price. Okay, and you can see what I mean by that, because the most amount of time price uses this to either pivot above it or below it, pivot above it, below it. And once you cross to the one or the other side, that's when the big moves happen. Okay? And we use that then to do this, create where the upper end of the resistance would be, and also did that to try and create where the lower end of support would be. Now you do get shakeouts. These things do happen, and shakeouts get tested. And that's basically the way that the supply and demand rays work. So this would be a supply ray, and this would be a demand ray. And that's the whole analysis that we use to get all these shorts. That's how we got all these entries. Now I'm saying, okay, I'm going to do exactly the same. What we can do is we can now take all those lines away, and I'll start fresh so that it's clean. Take all those lines away, and we do exactly the same. So, okay, right. This is where price is moving at. This is the axis. I keep on always selecting the wrong line. There we go. That's the axis. So you want to snap to the bottom between where the divergence occurs. Divergence. Then you want to look at the market giving you a little. So you always give a little bit of time so that the market runs. And now you can clearly see picture-wise, we are rejecting, supporting at certain key levels into the future. Now you can adjust it slightly because, I mean, these are working with insanely small angles, okay, 29.43 degrees. And if I go 29.47 or 7 degrees, you can see you start missing stuff. So what you want to do is you at some stage, you will slightly adjust it just to make sure that you get that fractal of a degree or that small increment in there. And then from this point onwards, you know where your demand will be. Your supply, I apologize, supply would be, and you will know where your demand is going to be sitting at. And there's a shakeout, and we will probably still get supply shakeouts as things go on as well. At the moment, this is where it seems to be where new supply or resistance hits in. And there's your channel. Now, there's easier, lazier ways to do that. You can literally just draw a parallel channel. And the way that those guys would be doing it, they will be snapping to the top, pull it to the bottom, and there's your channel. And for the majority of times, that will almost be accurate enough. But because I want to identify certain areas where there's gaps, remember, when we have big moves, there will always be gaps. So you can look at this. There was a big move. There's gaps. So price is trying to fill that gap. There's no big moves here, so expect the grind to almost be slow and steady until we get above probably critical resistance levels, which is sitting right there at 95. Then the market will be really bullish and start moving quickly. So those would be the support areas. And as there's one thing I want to basically end off the stream with you guys. It's very simple. When you're looking at any analysis, you need to factor in 3 things. If you don't factor in 3 things, you don't have a complete picture. First thing, support and resistance, guys. So you want to understand where the major resistance levels are. Okay? That's why you look to the past to try and project where the future is going to be. Switch to the line to identify. Listen, there was a lot of support lost. So if that is support lost, it's now resistance. So we're looking at it. We name it resistance, and that's it. Red line. Market's going to be hesitant leading up to that level because who wants to buy a resistance level? Okay. Then you want to look at support areas. What do we have for support at the moment? Well, there's not much in that instance because we're trying to find a good move. We're trying to stay in with the momentum. So support-wise, what do we have? That would be the closest area of support. Hence the fact that the setups I share is trying to anticipate where the price is going to turn so that we can add on. And the latest setup, the argument was that I was looking for the market to move towards 89, kind of bounce on these highs. And in the future, it could potentially do it. But for now, I think we're going to try and smash through the resistance because I think that is more important than anything else. And then the last thing, okay, so you've got resistance support levels. You know where you're at. So where's the the smaller time frame. Let's maybe just do this real quick. The smaller time frame support for price. There. Support for price. We're trying to stay above that. Where's the pivot? Pivot's on that line. Support to the right there. Simple as that. So that's the smaller time frame support. So if we look at this, we've got our momentum. We've got our support and our resistance. And now we just need to, we got our trend, sorry. Now we just need to look at our momentum. Okay, so first thing, support and resistance, horizontal lines. Horizontal lines. Trend, supply and demand raise. Who's buying, who's selling, and who's stronger? And now momentum, the RSI. Okay, now how do we look at the RSI? Let's quickly take away the brush strokes for this 4-hour time frame. And there's another one there, and we can take that one away as well. Okay, I'm looking for continuation within this price structure. So the market is not allowed to make lower lows at all. There's the low. So I'm going to mark that as a higher high line just for now. Just change it to a LL level. We don't want to see any of these lows cross. The RSI made a pivot there. The RSI made a pivot there. So it was moving, turned the direction, moving, turned direction. So those would be areas that I would say, okay, we can't go below this. This means that our long setup is this. Any bounce close to support. And one can argue just because you don't want to be the guy left holding your stable, because that's a sucky place to be. Everybody's making money and you're the idiot sitting with your money. And you don't want to FOMO in. You don't want to break any of the trading rules, buy the top and get wrecked. But this is getting in with the momentum. This is the play. It's as simple as that. We want to try and get in there. And then we want to target price to go through the resistance and hopefully now get up to where supply is at 100, maybe even higher. The more time or the less time it takes, the lower the price. The more time it takes, the higher the price. We don't have a trend on the 4-hour just yet, but there's maybe an inkling if we start going on to smaller time frames. I don't want to do that because that can change within an hour from now. Hope that sorts you out. Hope that gives you a good idea of what you need to look for. And this means that I'm recanting the setup that I shared yesterday and the day before. And I'm going to be looking at this one. Now, just to make sure you don't get chopped up, because if everybody advertises their stop limits for this right there, what is the market going to do? It's just going to go take your stop. So if you want to be greedy, you want to try and get it as tight as possible, you might get taken out. So just give this thing a little more weaving room, saying that, okay, this low, anywhere between there, people can get squeezed out. Takes your stop, then runs. You don't want to be that guy, so you want to make sure that if the instance it takes somebody else's stop, you can always grab a better price down there. You don't have to grab it, yeah? But at least then you're in the move. That's it. That's the message for today. Hope that makes sense, guys. 4 comments. Come on, let me know we are. Everybody just give me a 777 real quick. We're ready for Bitcoin to break out. Let's just quickly see if everybody's awake. Even if you're watching on Twitter, any of the pages, do me a solid. Just say 777. Let's just see if you guys, at least everybody is on. Firestorm, thanks, buddy. Let's see what Lumpy has to say in the comments. Good evening. Thanks for the big info session yesterday. A lot of hard lessons I've learned during trading. I'm happy for that, buddy. Happy that it helped you. Morning, Dean. Thanks again for the comment. All in. Okay, you're all in, my friend. That's nice. Let's quickly have a look at. We're going to be looking at alts a little bit later today. I will be doing an altcoin stream for you guys. So we're going to be taking some of these coins. And the big thing for me with them is specifically stuff like Ethereum and I'm on the wrong list. Let me just get onto the right list. Stuff like Ethereum, and I'll go back to daily or even weekly timeframes. Okay. If Bitcoin tanks down and gives back a lot of gains, all that's going to do is it's just going to scare the shit out of people on ETH. Okay. ETH needs to grind up and get that higher high. We've got hidden bearish divergence. the market cannot afford to be bearish right now, or else alt season is postponed yet again. And if you want to bet that it's going to be bullish, that's the stuff. And you need to prep for this afternoon's meeting, because I'm going to be looking at these coins and I'm going to be sharing some info for you guys. Okay, that's it. Thanks so much, guys. You have a lovely day. See you later on today. Getting a little bit more 777s. Guys are waking up. Awesome. It's going to be a great weekend. I can feel it. This thing's going to pump. Cheers, guys.